All right, so I've been breaking it down, getting jiggy with it, going through Mrs. Video here. I believe this will be verse number 4, in which she lost her faith. She said 3 verses so far in Romans, Psalms, and Deuteronomy. I addressed them in previous videos. This is number 4. Let's go and let's see what going on. If we can help rectify, help her out, or anyone else that may stumble upon this video and not go apostate. Let's get it.
Had a really difficult time with that I still cannot find a good justification for is in Deuteronomy 20:10 through 18. When you march up to attack a city, make its people an offer of peace. If they accept and open their gates, all the people in it shall be subject to forced labor and shall work for you. If they refuse to make peace and they engage you in battle, lay siege to the city. When the Lord your God delivers it into your hand, put to sword all the men in it. As for the women, the children, the livestock, and everything else in the city, you may take these as plunder for yourselves. And you may use the plunder the Lord your God gives you from your enemies. This is how you are to treat all cities that are at a distance from you and do not belong to the nations nearby. So God is commanding his people to go around to all the neighboring cities, to offer them peace, to say, hey, we're giving you a peace offering. Would you like to make peace with us? And if that city agrees to being peaceful with you, you are to capture them and enslave them. You are to force them to work for you, to be your slaves. So right here, right on in the very beginning, it's saying to harm people that are peaceful with you, to force them to work for you, to enslave them. This is God specifically endorsing and commanding you to enslave other people, even if they're peaceful. Then it says, if they are not peaceful, then you are to just kill them all.
Wipe them out.
Kill every single one of them, and then take the women and children as plunder and do whatever with the plunder that you want to do.
Well, he didn't say
Those are the spoiled.
No, he didn't say to do whatever you want with the plunder. Now we're adding to the text. Let's just stick to the text. The text is heavy enough to digest and explain. Let's not add to the text. It doesn't say to do whatever you want to do with them. This is where our little Confederates come through with that's my property. I do whatever I want to do with my property and all that nonsense. That's not what it says here. And there's actually a death penalty for men stealing, even in the Old Testament time. And it's talking about enslaving people. You can't capture somebody and sell them and all that good stuff. The penalty of it in this time is death. Mass rape and genocide and all that stuff. Let's not jump the gun. But since I paused, let's go ahead and let her finish her thought, and I'll hop into it.
Of your war. What do you think that means? Like, what do you think it was intended when they said take the women and children and do whatever you want with them?
Okay, then let's read it then. She keeps repeating that part. All right. Let me pull it up on the screen. So we addressed the marriage one last time, so it's in the same book, Deuteronomy 20 verse 10. So it's really just almost the same response, because we're talking about morality again. And in the previous verse, I spoke about absolute truth and absolute morality. Either it's your morality or God's morality, but you're appealing to a morality that you're inferring as absolute. So it's like you're using absolute morality to debate morality revealed by an absolute God, which is the morality that he did give for ancient Israel in this day as a nation in this time. But let's get into it. Verse 10. When you march up to attack a city, make its people an offer of peace. Okay, so you're not going out there to just conquer, but you're going out there to make peace with these people. Now, I wonder what's the peace terms? What's the terms of peace? It doesn't say what the terms of peace is with these cities far away, so we won't assume. Can't assume if they're the ones that's marching up on them as far as declaring war, or if they're the ones that's responding to war that's coming their way. But in any case, this is what we got. If they accept and open their gates, all the people in it shall be subject to forced labor and shall work for you. If they refuse to make peace and they engage you in battle, lay siege to that city. When the Lord your God delivers it into your hand, put to the sword all the men in it. As for the women, the children, the livestock, and everything else in the city, you may take these as plunder for yourselves, and you may use the plunder the Lord your God gives you from your enemies. This is how you are to treat all the cities that are at distance from you and do not belong to the nations nearby. Heck, here it says the ones that are near you, don't even leave anything living. Wipe them all out. Completely destroy them. The Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, all of them, wipe them out. And as the Lord has commanded you. This is straight from heaven. Why? Otherwise, they will teach you to follow all the detestable things they do in worship and worshiping their God. And they will sin against the Lord your God. When you lay siege to the city for a long time, fight. Okay, goes into all that. Okay. So the cities nearby are wiping them out. Why are we wiping these people out? Well, why are they wiping these people out? Because they're going to teach you to sin against God. They're going to teach you to do the detestable things before the Lord, such as sodomy, sacrificing children, and I don't know, probably bestiality and all the other nonsense that wicked, perverse, pagan cultures were involved in back in those days. So the judgment has come to pass. All these cities near you, wipe them all out. Just like Jericho was wiped out. It was a judgment by the sword sent by God. So now concerning these cities far away, God is saying, don't wipe them all out. Just wipe out the men. Take the women and children and their possessions as plunder. So, in Leviticus, we have more laws. This is what it says. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. I would think raping a woman who's captive and she's a foreigner now living in your land is a sign of mistreating or a format of mistreating them. So this goes against what the young lady concluded. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Oh, interesting. Okay. So when these women and these children come in that you're taking back to Israel, they have automatic first-class citizen rights. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So you were foreigners in Egypt. You were captives in Egypt. And you know how the Egyptians treated you. You ain't not going to treat these people the way that they treated you. You're going to treat them as if they were born here. So the idea that you get to take captives and do with them whatever you want is not supported by Scripture. You see, we got to take the full counsel of God's revealed will. And Leviticus is within the same time frame by the same author, given to the same people. So Deuteronomy is actually a retelling of that's what Deuteronomy means. It means retelling. It's a retelling of the law. It's a retelling of what was previously given. So in Deuteronomy, this is the generation who made it out of the desert of 40-year wandering. The ones that came out, they died. They were judged. Now, the new generation has risen up, and now the law is being retold in Deuteronomy by Moses, the one who wrote Leviticus. So you don't get to treat people however you want. So going back to Deuteronomy 20. So this is back in Exodus 22. This is where the giving of the law even starts. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. So it's repeated twice. It's repeated in Exodus. It's repeated in Leviticus. Now, I wonder if it's repeated in Deuteronomy. All right, so let's go somewhere closer to home, right? So we have Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 18. Let's start with 17. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lords of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. No bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widows. All right. So remember Deuteronomy 20, where the city that refuses to make peace, you go in there, you kill the men, you take the women, and you take the children. Because the man has now died, the child is now fatherless, and the woman is now a widow. So, what's God's heart against or towards the fatherless and the widows? He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widows, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. So, the women and the children that are being brought back into Israel are not being brought back as slaves, captives, to be dehumanized like the children of Israel were treated in Egypt. But rather, they could have been destroyed with the men, but rather they're being brought back to be given food, clothing, shelter, and a living. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. He is the one you praise. He is your God who performed for those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eye. See, look, your ancestors who went down into Egypt were 70 in all, and now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. So I'm going to use you to be a blessing on the nations. That was what God said to Abraham. I'm not using you to be a curse on the nations, to go killing and pillaging and raping and acting all colonial-like. That's not what the promise the Lord gave to Abraham, but rather to be a light unto the Gentiles. Now the men, why God had the men executed, I don't know. Maybe didn't want any future uprisings. So the warriors of the nation are executed, which was a bill that typically a man will fill. So, but I don't want to add, because all this is not spoken of in the scriptures. I could guesstimate. But nevertheless, the Bible doesn't contradict itself, because here it's saying to look out for the fatherless and the widows. And even in the book of James, I think chapter 2, it says pure and undefiled religion is to visit orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep yourself undefiled from the world. So you gotta, just like you read a letter, like the one in Romans chapter 9, where she thought this was about God pre-selecting and predestining people to hell, which is not what Romans 9 is about. I spoke about that in the first video. And I said, well, you got to read the entire book. You got to read all of it in its context, or in addition to the first verse. You can't take one verse and ignore another verse. You got to take all of it and come to the conclusion. Okay, what is God saying here? Same thing with Deuteronomy. It's a retelling of the law. We see what he's saying about foreigners, how they should be treated. He defends their cause of the fatherless and the widows in the same context. And while he's speaking of foreigners, and then he speaks of, in Deuteronomy 20, of captives, fatherless and widows, coming back to Israel to be first-class citizens with the Israelites. Okay, so let's get even more specific before I close the chapter, because it's a great idea to talk about a topic in the same book among the same topic, right? So she quoted Deuteronomy 20. In the very next chapter, we're talking about captive women, right? So here we go. When you go to war against your enemies and the Lord your God delivers them into your hand and you take captives, that means you get to rape them all day. Wait, what does it say? If you notice among the captives a beautiful woman and are attracted to her, you may take her as your wife. Oh, okay. So she has dignity, respect. God is the God of the fatherless and the widows. You want to marry her? You can marry her. Bring her into your home and have her shave her head, trim her nails, which is a sign of mourning, and put aside the clothes she was wearing when captured. After she has lived in your house and mourned her father and mother for a full month, and you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. If you are not pleased with her, let her go wherever she wishes. You must not sell her or treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. Okay, so she has dignity, rights. If you want to divorce her, you may divorce her. And Jesus says that Moses permitted divorce because of the hardness of your heart. But if you do divorce her, you can't sell her. And you can't treat her as a slave because you have dishonored her. So that's even more specific as far as the rights and dignities of these captives and the understanding and interpretation of a colonial type mindset that people may, or she may think that's what Israel is on and what God has mandated is not the case.